Moshi Moshi.
Hello,
I'm Zeb Ramsbotham,
and I'm Annie Ramsbotham.
and we're the Rambling Ramsbothams.
Our journey might be rambling, but we hope this podcast isn't.
And we're finally in a moderately, not really, air-conditioned room.
Yeah, we cracked.
Yeah, we're using AC. So we made it pretty much until the end of June, beginning of July. So today is July 3rd.
Yeah.
We've probably been using AC for about 3 days.
Yeah, more or less. And it did rain last week, and it cooled things off considerably, but it got rapidly like summer suddenly.
Yeah, I think the issue is that we went from like having a day where the high was, maybe we'd have like 1 or 2 days a week where the high was like 85 to 90 degrees. And then the other days weren't so bad. So you would have like this really hot day, and then you'd kind of have these other cooler days to kind of like catch a break and not be super hot. But now it's like every day the high is like 85 to 90.
Yeah.
And so there are no more breaks. And so now it's just, you're always hot.
The curtains, as much as they insulated in the winter, they're helping a lot with the sun too, though. So
yeah. Well, I remember, so when we first moved, or when I first got here,
yeah,
I told you that we needed curtains, and you were kind of like,
yeah,
oh,
I didn't think
it's
that
not
we
that
needed
big of a
them.
deal. And I would have the AC on full blast, all the way cold, and I would be sitting there in the living room with no curtains, like sweating.
Yeah.
Because the AC couldn't keep up with the heat just coming in through the windows.
Like an oven in there. But we were given the
brutal.
rainy season a hard time last week, and then I said that it cooled down a bit last week, and it was we kind of underestimated the rain for the weekend.
It was like one day.
Yeah.
There's one day of good rain.
It messed up our plans.
Yeah, so we were going to be talking about going on this bike trip.
Yeah.
That we had registered for this event, and it's over in Niigata, and that's what we were supposed to be doing this past weekend. And then I wasn't really paying attention to the weather, and there's this forum online where people talk about cycling events, and I saw that there was rain in the forecast, and so I made some comment on the forum about, it's going to be wet, and then I was making a joke about how I think it's 4 out of the 5 cycling events I've done now, it's rained.
Yeah.
And so I was making a joke about how, like, well,
you
I guess
always bring the rain.
Yeah, it's going to rain again. And some guy commented back, and he was like, oh, we're going to be lucky if it doesn't get canceled because they're, like, disaster. He said, like, disaster-level rain expected in Japan.
Yeah, which is intimidating.
Yeah, it's a little intimidating. And honestly, I didn't know the forecast was that bad. And then, coincidentally, like, 30 minutes or an hour after he posted that, the Asahi posted an article, and they were talking about, like, get ready because they're, like, these regions in Japan are expecting this much rain.
Yeah.
And they said we were expecting, like, 7.5 inches of rain in our area.
And then Niigata was even more.
Yeah.
So Ishikawa, it wasn't actually that bad.
Well, in Uchinada, so I think in Noto it rained way more.
Oh, okay.
And then I think in Kaga it rained quite a bit more. But we got a little lucky here in Uchinada.
Oh. In the Niigata area specifically, where we were going there, they were having, like, landslide warnings.
Well, I looked at it, and initially it was just like an advisory. And it was like, okay, like, just so you know, might be some heavy rain. And then about an hour later, I looked again, and it had gone from an advisory to a warning. And it was like, just so you know, like, it's definitely going to be a little rough. And then when we checked Saturday morning, just to see, like, if we had made the right decision, it was like a purple. It was like the next step up. It was like, yeah, landslides are happening.
Wow. Yeah, I feel like it was karma, though, because last week we were talking about, we had some big talk about, the rainy season is nothing.
Yeah, but that was just one day. And the only thing
hasn't been that bad.
The only thing it did is meant that we didn't go to this bike event, but then the very next day was, like, perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, so this episode, instead of that bike event, which is regrettable we didn't get to go and ride somewhere new and meet some people, but we are going to talk about other bike rides we did here, like, in this area, and some hydrangea stuff, which is a perk of the rainy season. And what else are we talking about? We're talking about Japanese work culture and vending machine appreciation.
Yeah.
So
just to start out, I was going to mention, so one thing that, if you've ever been to Japan in the summer, if you live in Japan, or you're coming on the JET program, it'll be good to know. I feel like the rainy season, really more of what people mean is that it's really humid. That a lot of people, because I was talking to some people and they were like, some of my coworkers were like, yeah, the rainy season's bad, isn't it? And I was kind of like, well, it hadn't really been raining much.
Yeah, there's really only been a couple.
And they were
kind of
like, yeah, but the humidity, right? And I was like, yeah, it is super
that
humid.
That makes a lot more sense because it has been really like sweaty and humid. And my friends said the same thing. And this was before that rainstorm, and I thought what really hasn't started yet. So maybe
so
they
it's
do
interesting.
just
So
mean
I think
the humid air.
I think it is supposed to rain a lot, and maybe we've just been lucky. But also, there is a lot of humidity. So one thing, if you're moving to Japan on the jet program, so one, obviously we want our house to be comfortable, and so we have our AC set almost as high as I think you can set it. So
we have
it's
it
not,
to 28 degrees Celsius.
So that's like 83 degrees
it's
Fahrenheit.
A very
or something.
high threshold, but it's fine.
Yeah.
It's better than just like sitting in an oven.
Yeah, but a major reason to use it is because of the humidity. So it's kind of a bummer now. Like, it's gotten to the point where even if it is cooler outside, if we open the windows and everything, to try and let some cool air in, it's so humid outside that as soon as we open the windows pretty quickly,
it feels sticky.
It's so sticky in our house. So we started running the AC, and we do have a dehumidifier.
Yeah, that's like the best purchase we've made.
It's really nice.
It helps a lot.
Annie made fun of it when I first got it.
I did.
I told her how much I spent. It was like $100,000 yen. No, it was 10,000 yen. It was almost $100.
Yeah.
And Annie was like, I can't believe you're buying that. And in the wintertime, it's perfect because you cut that thing on and it dries the clothes overnight. And it's so
because
nice.
Another thing, if you're coming on the jet program that I didn't realize is dryers are not very popular. And so in America, every home has an oven, which we've already talked about. That's not common. And usually if you have a washer, you also have a dryer. And here, if you have a washer, you probably don't have a dryer. So
that's a big deal. And so really, we also started using the AC to kind of combat the humidity.
Yeah, keep the mold away.
Yeah, we don't want a moldy house, and that's like a pretty common issue in Japanese houses, is there's a lot of mold due to the humidity. So we're using the AC for more comfortable temperatures, but also controlling the humidity. So if you're coming here for the jet program, or you're just coming to visit in the summer, it is humid. Like, I think in the Piedmont of North Carolina, where I'm from, we would sometimes have moments with as much humidity. But usually... It
definitely got this humid in Western North Carolina.
It'd be like after a rainstorm, though, and it'd maybe only be for, like a few hours, or like that evening. It would be really humid. And then often, like, the next day or the day after, the humidity would drop. But here, I just feel like it didn't even rain. It's just really humid.
It's kind of a bummer because we bike a lot of places on our city bikes. And I don't know, I guess I'm just naturally a sweaty person. But like when we get places, I can't cool off. And when we met up with some people at a cafe and they were like, oh, like bring it in for a hug. It was an American, not really a Japanese thing to do. But
I've actually replayed this thought in my head. I don't know if he was just doing the open arms like expression thing or if he actually wanted a hug.
No, he said it to you because then I was like, oh, I even told him, I was like, I'm going to give you an air hug because I was like, I can't hug you right now because just the humidity won't let me evaporate. But while
cycling, you feel great while you're moving. And then literally as soon as you get to like a stop sign or a red light.
Yeah, it's like the air is saturated.
Moving. Yeah, and then I made the mistake of like touching my jersey the other day.
Oh.
And I could tell like it was just soaked.
Gross.
And that's pretty abnormal.
Well, I guess this kind of goes along with your vending machine appreciation.
Yeah, I just love vending machines.
Yeah, they're really nice to have on
because
bike rides. And you don't have to worry about, I guess in Western North Carolina, we would think about, there are some like springs where we were. And so sometimes I could fill up my bottle.
Yeah, you do certain routes because there would be a spring on it and you could fill up your bottle. Or a lot of our friends now buy... like the filters?
Like filters, yeah. I would take iodine tablets with me, and I would purify creek water. And I forgot about that because now I don't have to do that anymore because...
I mean, it costs more money to go to a vending machine, but you get a nice cold drink.
Yeah.
And you can get like sodas, you can get coffee, you can get juices.
You can get hot beverages in the winter.
Yeah, in the wintertime.
So it warms up your hands.
Yeah.
But, yeah, huge.
And I was a big fan
bonus.
because they're often everywhere, like even in the middle of nowhere. And then I didn't have to go inside the convenience store, especially on my ride on Sunday because I was disgusting. I was so gross because some of the roads had been wet, and so my legs were like covered in dirt.
Like splattered.
And I know I probably had like dirt on my jersey, and then I was just so sweaty.
Yeah.
Like even like my bibs, when I touched my shorts, they were like damp, and my jersey, like, yeah, I was just so gross. I had already thought, I was like, even if I pass a convenience store, I can't go in. I'm just like, I was
really?
just too, yeah, I was so
Usually
gross.
you don't get, usually I'm the one that's self-conscious.
I wasn't self-conscious. I just felt like bad
for their
for
own.
them. Yeah, like I just knew. I
don't
was
want to be a
like,
public nuisance.
yeah, I was like, I could go in and I could get snacks and stuff, but also if I go in, like, yeah, I'm just so gross.
Yeah.
It was rough. But
well, so back to the cafe meeting with that guy that was trying to hug us while we were gross. There was another guy there who was Japanese, and we were talking about, we got onto the topic of work culture.
well, he was kind of asking like what we do, and we were trying to explain the JET program to him because he hadn't heard about it.
Mm-hmm.
So we were explaining it to him and just talking about it, and I was telling him, I'm an English teacher and I work at a high school. And he was kind of like, I want to ask you, like, why do you work in the summer? He's like, when the school's closed, like, why do you go to work? Yeah, and he was kind of asking, he was like, are the other teachers just in there, like, pretending to be busy and just, like, sitting around looking at each other? Or are you guys actually doing something? He was kind of like, what do you do?
Your mom was a school teacher in America, so it's not like we know that teachers do things when the students aren't there. But I guess in Japan they don't have the summer break that you have in America.
Yeah, and even in America, like, usually, like, right at the end of summer and right at the beginning,
there's like lesson planning that they need to do.
Yeah, there would be like teacher work days,
grading,
where the teachers would go and they would have time to do the work they needed at the school without students. But it wasn't like a lot. Like they got a pretty significant break.
Right, and in Japan they have all that, but then they just keep coming to work, like the same level, like the same amount that you would when students are here.
You just go and you just stay at the school.
Yeah.
And so it is pretty curious. And so I was actually thinking about this recently, and I've been talking about it. And then he asked, and I was trying to explain to him that I don't really know. But yeah, a lot of the teachers look fairly busy. Sometimes I will see other teachers and they'll be like reading a book or something. And I'm like, okay, well, like,
they're just reading a book.
Yeah, they're just reading a book.
But it would be rude to ask, I guess, like, what are you doing?
That's how I feel, because like
in
the off chance
busy?
they're actually busy, I don't want to offend them, because if they're actually like really busy and stressed, I don't want to just be this guy that's like, yeah, like, what are you doing?
Well, and you're
like,
contracted.
We got nothing going on.
You have to be there. So like you'll openly say that you don't have, like, you're just there in case the head teachers need help.
Or like the English teachers sometimes will ask me to do something.
Because as a JET, your title, you're an assistant language teacher, and so you don't make the lesson plans. So, yeah, but you still have to go to work every day.
Tricky, because if you're on the JET program, there are going to be tons of JETs. Like I know that there are JETs that have an even like lighter workload than what I have, which would be pretty shocking. And then there are some JETs that are really overworked because the school and the teachers kind of take advantage of you. But I feel like in either case, even if you're overworked by JET standards, you're probably still underworked by Japanese teacher standards. And anyway, I was talking to this other teacher I work with, and she said that 20 to 30 years ago, teachers actually got the breaks, but then other salaried employees in Japan were like really complaining about the fact
that make them feel guilty?
Yeah, I guess they would make them feel guilty, and they'd complain about how like, oh, the teachers are overpaid. And so they would like
rude.
pitch a big fit about it. And so the government like instituted like the teachers go to work during breaks.
Wow.
Yeah, so she said that, I don't know how, I haven't like looked into that, but that was according to a Japanese teacher I work with, that 20 to 30 years ago it wasn't the case, and you didn't go to work during the breaks. But then society kind of got upset.
Yeah, I mean, Japan is a utopia in so many senses, but there are some issues with just the mentality behind work culture, that it's celebrated that you should look busy even if you're not busy, and like naps are really like, it's like looked
I don't know how, so that's like a classic story. Like in my workplace, I feel like if you were a teacher and you were sleeping,
maybe
someone
not
would
naps,
say something.
but like if somebody falls asleep on the job or falls asleep on the train, not on the job, but if you're at your desk and you're just so tired you're falling asleep at your desk, people I feel like would be like, oh, look at what a hard worker he is. He must be so tired from working
That's like a
so
pop
hard.
culture story on the internet.
So that doesn't happen in your...
In my workplace, no.
Oh, okay.
I feel like if you fell asleep at your desk...
They'd be like, what's
the
wrong
other
with
teachers
you?
would be like, yeah, are you okay? Like,
oh, that's good then.
Yeah, I feel like maybe like if you were a classic salary man,
yeah,
that's like a story about that. I don't know how like true that is, but yeah, it's really interesting. But that guy that we were talking to, he said that he's happy that more foreigners are moving to Japan and joining the Japanese workforce, because he was saying that he hopes that we can help Japanese people, I guess, essentially understand like a better work-life balance.
That there's something else out there that could be acceptable.
Yeah, and also just understanding like you don't have to work overtime. Because he was like asking me, he's like, so what, like when do you go home? And I'm like, oh, like right at 4:15. Like I'll walk out of the building. And he was like, oh really? And I was like, yeah, like that's when I'm done working.
Well, and also your position, you're never eligible for a raise or a change in position, and so it is a little different when you're a teacher and you're like, well, maybe I want to move up, like maybe I want to be looked at for a vice principal position one day, and so they want to work overtime like for that purpose.
Yeah,
but
I just don't know how that works either, because it's so interesting that when you're a teacher, it's common to move every 1 to 3 years. So it's not like you're staying in the same occupation, but it's not even like really you're staying at the same company,
I guess so.
Like you're not working for the same principal, and it's not like the principal's been there for 30 years and then you've been teaching there for like 15 years and the principal's like, yeah, that guy.
Yeah, it's just so ingrained that like overtime is expected. Like it's like the mentality of like if you're not early, you're late, but reverse. Like if you don't, like it's expected to stay after when you're supposed to go home.
Yeah, and that's what that guy was joking about, that he feels like in a lot of companies there might be like one person that actually has like work that they have to get done, so they're staying late, but everyone else will sit at their desk and like wait because they don't want to be the first person to leave. Yeah, so they don't want to like break the barrier, though, because so they wait, and then
I just don't think that an influx of foreign people will change that, because people would just be like, oh, well, the American does what the American wants to do.
Maybe,
but we're
but
Japanese.
I do think some Japanese people see it and they're a little envious, and they think it's interesting because they think that they can't change. Like that one coworker I have, he kind of complains about Japanese societal norms, and so I'll ask him sometimes, I'm like, so why don't you just stay at home like this weekend if you're like tired, like don't go
to like the community potluck,
or just like cancel. And he's like, well, it's because I'm Japanese. And I'm like, yeah, but
and it's hard. There is like the peer pressure and the societal, like you want to do, I guess, quote unquote, what's right in your mind.
Yeah.
So
but
I feel like it'll be a
like
generational thing. Like his kids, maybe he'll tell them like it's
like
okay.
Don't do it. Like it's a trap. Like don't go to the potluck.
But it's hard if you're already in it to just stop.
Yeah, and I'm honestly kind of fascinated that foreigners do it too, like in the workplace. Sometimes, because like
other jets.
Yeah, like another very popular, famous YouTuber, Chris Broad. He would talk about that from his time as a jet.
Really?
He would talk about, like how you would just stay at the school after school.
He was a jet 10 years ago, so I don't know if it was just different. Or maybe other jets listening to this can tell us, like, do you feel pressure?
I think some people do, because sometimes you'll read on Reddit about people that are like, I have so many, like, responsibilities, and I, like, stay in the teacher's room. And
yeah. That would be hard if all of your coworker peers were doing something, and you were like, is it actually not okay if I go home? Like, that would be hard.
Yeah, I feel like that's why you just have to set, if you're like an incoming jet, you just kind of set the precedent. I never asked or never looked around or never had any second thoughts about it.
Well, and
they told me the times that I'm supposed to be there, and
yeah.
I do get there early. Like some days I'll get there at like 8:20 or 8:25.
Right.
And I don't have to be there until 8:30.
I don't think you'll refuse to help, Like, if somebody did need your help, I don't think you would be like, sorry, I gotta go.
Depends on the situation.
Oh.
For example, if a teacher was coming to me and they were like, hey, can you make this, or hey, can you record this listening test?
Yeah.
And it was like 4:10, I might tell them, like, hey, I'm only here until 4:15. Like, can I come in and do it first thing tomorrow morning?
Right.
Because, yeah, I mean,
I guess that's better for, like, boundaries. But, yeah, I mean, generally...
But a lot of them know, and I think my school, it is nice because I think most teachers, like sometimes people, like they'll have something like today I had to record a listening test.
Mm-hmm.
And my coworker, you know, he asked me, he was like, so what time are you, and it's funny because they always act like they don't know. They're like, so what time are you, like,
same time.
when do you normally leave? And I was like, 4:15. And he was like, okay, like, we can definitely do it before then.
It was very nice that he asked.
Yeah, I just think it's so funny because maybe he just, like, tries to pretend like he hasn't noticed that every day at the exact same time, like,
He's
get up and walk out.
Jealous, maybe.
Maybe a little bit. Yeah, it's just really interesting, like, the whole idea of Japanese work culture and if you're an ALT and
yeah,
how it
I am curious, like, if anyone listening to this is a current ALT, if they, like, an ALT on the JET program, if they have that pressure, or if their supervisor has told them, like, I know it says 4:15, but, like, everybody here stays until 5:30 or whatever. I don't know.
I think it is really interesting because Japan has so many good workplace laws to prevent overwork.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like they're pretty reliant on you feeling that sense of pressure and duty to overlook it. Because I feel like, I don't know if they would ask or tell you that it's expected to stay.
Oh.
I think they would try and, like, because they want you to make that decision on your own.
Pressure you.
Yeah, they would hope that maybe
Peer
you would feel
pressure.
that pressure.
That's
Because they do
interesting.
have really good laws, and you can always point to your contract and say, not like these are the times I'm expected to be here. And they have, like, really good laws about, like, if you're, like, forced or asked to stay and stuff like that. So
that's good. But
yeah,
yeah,
I don't know.
the culture is interesting, definitely. It will be interesting to see if, like, in a generation it's the same or if it's drastically changed. But I have a more fun topic from my Tuesday. So on Tuesdays I go and get coffee with some friends, and instead of sitting at an office desk, so I'm very fortunate in that way. But we went this time. Zeb's like making some eyes, but
Must
we went.
Be nice.
Yeah, we went this time to a hydrangea temple, and so the temple is actually called Honkoji, is like the name of the temple, but a lot of people will call it, I guess, the nickname Hydrangea Temple.
Mm.
And there are temples like that are much bigger and more famous, like all over Japan. If you just Google Hydrangea Temple Japan,
It is interesting
pop
that,
up.
yeah, I feel like in Japan a lot of things are like that. They're like, oh, have you seen the giant Buddha? And it's like,
The giant Buddha, and
it's
there's
like, yeah, which one?
a ton of different
And they'll be
ones.
like, oh, you know, the one that's in Noto.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I have seen that one. And then sometimes they'll be like, oh, the one that's in,
like Kyoto.
yeah,
or,
like somewhere different. And it's, yeah. Because I had actually had a teacher, a coworker, mention the Hydrangea Temple to me.
Well,
Like, they
I
were like,
think
oh, have you been to the Hydrangea Temple?
this
And I
must
was
be
like,
the
"Oh,
one they
I
were talking about
haven't."
because it's local to this area. So
Yeah,
that'd
I
be
think
weird
it
if they were
is.
like, oh, I was talking about the one that was like in Tokyo.
Yeah.
But so while the rain messed up our bike plans for this past weekend, it is really positive for things like hydrangeas. And so rainy season and hydrangeas are kind of synonymous in Japan. And there's over 50 different species of hydrangea here. And a lot of them are native to Japan, and then a lot of them come from the West. So, like, you know, we had hydrangeas back home.
Yeah. Which is
But-
pretty funny because with that teacher, it was one of those moments where,
They were like, do you have hydrangeas?
well, she was like, have you heard of the Hydrangea Temple? And I was like, oh, like, I was like, I haven't heard of the temple. And she was like, you know, like, but do you know what hydrangeas are?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, like the flowers. And she was like, oh, yeah. So you've seen them here? And I was like, yeah, I mean, I've seen them here. And I was also telling her, like, we have them back home. And she was a little shocked.
Really?
Yeah, it was kind of like the Four Seasons thing. She was like, wow, really? Like,
I guess if you grow up
you
thinking
also have those in America?
hydrangeas are like native to you, like your country.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's probably things in America that I'm like, oh, this is totally American, and it's not.
Yeah.
But so this temple, if you're in the Kanazawa area, it's in a little, I don't know, like a town outside of Kanazawa called Morimoto. It's between Kanazawa and Tsubata, which is also not a very big town, but it's called the Honkoji Temple, and I'll link the website to the temple in our show notes. But it was really peaceful and beautiful. When we pulled up, my friends were like, oh, this is like totally Inaka, like countryside, which I thought was funny because I was like, it's not really that far out of the
Yeah, 'cause
way.
I looked at it on Google Maps, and it's not.
I think she took a wrong turn because we were just like on the road, and then my other friend was like, oh, it's right over there, and so we'd like cut through this rice paddy, like farm area, so we were driving on some gravel for a bit. But anyway, you may already know this if you like hydrangeas, but the different colors of the hydrangeas, they're like blue and purple and pink and red, and the colors change based on the soil acidity or basicness. And anthocyanin is a pigment that the flower petals have, and it's affected by the aluminum that the plant absorbs in the soil. And so the more aluminum it can absorb, the bluer the flower. So basically the more acidic the soil, the more easily the aluminum dissolves and is absorbed by the plant. And then on the reverse, the more alkaline or basic the soil, the pinker it is.
Yeah, so it's kind of like the plant version of like a pH strip.
Yeah.
Because we used to talk about it a lot. So when I worked at camp and I was doing like the farming thing, we would look at the hydrangeas by our house a lot. Because where we used to live, we had hydrangeas in our front yard.
Mm-hmm.
So we would always like walk by and look at those. And we would have like a little lesson about like the pH of the soil and talk about the color of the plant.
Well, what I can't figure out though is, so outside the temple, they had them lining the path, and then next to that, there was this garden that was just full of them, and the bushes were all different colors, but the patch of dirt was really not that large. So I couldn't really figure out why in one area they would be blooming all different kinds.
It could be,
it
could be like maybe if the soil is like the same, the plant, it can just change. Or it could be they were putting like additives in the soil.
Maybe.
Because some people in America do that. They'll add like orange peels or like banana peels coffee grounds. And they'll try and change the pH of the soil to change the color of their plants. So maybe they had done that at the temple for the effect. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. It was very beautiful. And then I also learned afterwards that you can make tea from hydrangea, which I had never heard of that.
I didn't know that.
And it's actually called amacha, which is literally sweet tea. And being from like the southern part of the U.S., sweet tea is like a totally different thing in my head. But apparently the herbal tea from hydrangea leaves, it has this like thing in it that makes it so sweet, and it's a compound called philodolcin. And the natural sweetener, I don't know if I believe this, but it says it's 400 to 800 times sweeter than sugar.
Well, it's just really interesting because if that's true, and maybe this is what we do, but why don't we use hydrangea as like stevia?
Yeah.
As like a natural
I wondered
sweetener,
that too, except that it did say like you shouldn't drink more than a certain amount of ounces because it will give you food poisoning. Because
well, I guess that's why.
Yeah, that's possibly why. Because there are, it's a little bit toxic. And so I don't know if they were saying that.
It's so interesting that there's so many things in Japan that are kind of like that.
Right, you can only have so much.
Like the ferns that people eat.
Yeah.
And apparently hydrangea tea, you should only have so much.
Like ginkgo or ginkan, like the little.
Oh, the ginkgo nuts?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then fugu.
Apparently you can only
fish.
have so many like ginkan, little ginkgo.
Ginkan is like the entrance room.
Oh, yeah. It's the wrong word.
I mean, it also could be the word.
No, I think I'm saying it wrong. But the fruit that is on ginkgo trees, I didn't know you could only eat so many. And I was talking about this with another American friend, and he was like, "Wait, you were only supposed to have so many in a day?" He was like, "I bought them on sale at the supermarket, and I just ate the whole pack."
Oh no.
He's fine, but they were like, "Yeah, you should not do that." It has, I don't know, you can overload your body with whatever compounds in there that you shouldn't have too much of.
So I was reading. There was a story about, the pufferfish that's got like the liver.
Yeah.
And they take the liver out because it's got this neurotoxin.
Like fugu or something.
Yeah, apparently sometimes they'll leave like a little bit of the toxin in there. And if done properly, it gives you like, not like a high, but it like makes your body feel a certain way.
Goodness.
And it's a slight amount of neurotoxin. And then there's some story about an article.
Seems like a dangerous game.
Yeah. People were saying that this is probably what happened. There was a guy in like the 1800s or something that claimed that he was like immune to the pufferfish toxin, and so apparently he ate like 8 servings of it, and they hadn't removed the liver, and he died like an hour later.
Yeah.
And he had told everyone, like all his friends, he was like, "Yeah, I'm immune."
Why
and so
did
they were
he do
like, "Dang,
that?
let's eat it." And then he ate a bunch, and he was not immune. So they were saying
That's
that it could have been that he had like
small amounts.
Yeah, like a very small dose that was like the extremely trace amount that only makes your body feel a little like tingly or something. And it gave him the idea that, like, yeah, I'm immune.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess I would eat that if it was presented to me at a very fancy restaurant. I just don't think that...
Well, now I think it's like a super licensed process. Like, they still serve it in so many places in Japan, but I think they've really cracked down on the licensing.
There's
but
just
yeah,
a lot
even
of
for
things
me,
that
like,
I don't feel like I need to
it.
try. Like,
Yeah.
I could also eat chicken sashimi if I wanted to, but I don't want to.
Or horse.
Yeah.
You could have some horse sashimi.
Yeah, there's just... I mean, I don't know. It really depends on the context of the setting and if I felt like it was rude to refuse, but there's so many things that I just don't need to try, I guess. But anyways, back to the sweet tea made from hydrangea. Apparently you usually... You'll use this tea for kanbutsue, which is the Buddha bathing ceremony that happens on his birthday.
Wow.
And that the Buddha's birthday is thought to be April 8th every year. And so during that ceremony, they'll pour amacha over the statue of the Buddha and serve it to people who are there to celebrate him. And the legend says that on the day Buddha was born, 9 dragons poured the amacha over him. Or, sorry, they poured amrita over him, which I don't know what that is, but now they substitute amacha. So, yeah. Fun fact. Now it makes me want to drink this supposedly really naturally sweet tea, but only like 1 cup, so I don't get poisoned.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe that's why it isn't used and it's not like sold in stores, because they don't want people buying.
Well, you can buy the tea in stores.
Oh, can you?
I think so.
Oh.
I just don't know what.
Buy some.
I don't know what I'd be looking for. I should.
It just seems
like
weird to sell a substance that is going to give you food poisoning, but I guess they sell alcohol, so.
Yeah,
it's like,
that's true. Everything in moderation.
Yeah.
Well, so after the temple time, we went to this little farm cafe, and we had a really nice soba set. My friend called it like washoku, like Japanese style food, where.
Yeah.
It was a little soba thing, and then the tray of food had a bunch of tiny little sample food bites almost, and one was a jello type thing that it looked like scrambled eggs, like gelatinized scrambled eggs, and I was like, what is this? And she said that it was actually seaweed. I'd never seen like yellowy seaweed before, but they made a jello out of it. It was fine. I mean, it wasn't gross and it wasn't delicious, but it was very interesting. And, just other little things. But the highlight of the meal, anyway, was that afterwards we got ice cream, and it was soba flavored ice cream, which does not sound like it would be good because, of course, soba is a savory noodle, but it was actually kind of like barley tasting, kind of like, what are those puffed wheat cereals? Like Honey Smackers.
Yeah.
It was like that, but without all the honey.
And it was on top of coffee.
Yeah, I got the coffee float version.
I guess it's kind of like the Japanese version of what's it, like affogato?
Yeah, kind of.
It's the like espresso and vanilla ice cream.
Espresso, yeah, the poured over ice cream.
Yeah.
They had, I mean, I've seen that in cafes, but this place just had a coffee float. You can get
Georgia, the coffee brand, which is owned by Coca-Cola, which is why it's called Georgia.
I didn't know that's why it's called Georgia. That's funny.
Yeah. They're the Coke coffee brand here. They make caramel affogato coffee that you get in vending machines. It's really good.
Why is it called affogato, though, if there's no ice cream involved?
It's flavored.
Interesting.
It's affogato caramel flavor.
I feel like, have you ever ordered an affogato?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like half of the fun of it is that it's like hot and cold together. But, I mean, that still sounds nice.
It does sound nice. Just like your soba flavored ice cream. It does sound good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I'll have to go get some.
We should. I would eat that again.
Yeah.
We can add that to my growing list of new ice creams that we've tried.
Yeah. Well, I didn't try any new ice creams this past weekend, but I did go on a nice bike ride.
Yeah.
Actually, did I try any new ice cream this past weekend?
No, I feel like we got some, like, 7-Eleven
No, because I've been back on my, like, the big Monica.
Oh, yeah.
I've been eating the big
Whenever
Monica.
you say Monica, I think of, like, a female name.
I think of Monica Lewinsky. That's who I think of.
But there's an ice cream here. I don't know if I don't know where it comes from, but it's called Monica with a K.
Yeah.
And it's like a waffle with
It's basically
ice cream
like
inside.
a waffle cone, but it's a little sandwich, and the ice cream's inside,
but
so you get the
fluffier
waffle
than
cone,
a waffle cone
exterior, Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. But it's called a Monica.
Yeah, and so my favorite is the Family Mart Extra Big Monica.
Extra big Monica.
Yeah, I really like Extra Big Monica. And then there's also the Jif, which is the exact same branding as what looks like Jif peanut butter.
Yeah.
And it says Jif, like J-I-F. The Jif Monica with the chocolate in the middle is also pretty good.
Mm.
So I've been
good.
switched up from the cone recently. I usually get the vanilla cone, and I've been getting the Extra Big Monica. But
Anyway, tell me about your bike ride.
I went on a nice bike ride on Sunday because we were supposed to do that event, so I was kind of like a little fired up to like do some kind of like bike ride.
And the sun came out, so it was a great day.
Yeah, Sunday was actually pretty nice. It wasn't too windy. It was pretty humid because all the rain we just had, and some of the roads were still a little bit wet. But yeah, I just kind of realized it had been a while since I'd done like a pretty long ride, so I planned like just a little 100-mile ride with some new roads.
Just a little 100-mile ride. Just
Yeah,
a little jaunt.
just real casual. Just
Wow.
out there pedaling around. Yeah, so I planned like a pretty sweet new ride, and I kind of, there's like an area, it's the area that's the border of Ishikawa and Toyama is pretty mountainous and also pretty Inaka. Like there's really not much in that area. If you look at it on a map, it's like very green. There are some like little towns and like little habitation areas, but it's very like hilly.
Habitation
Some of them are
areas.
like pretty mountainous, but it's like a great place for riding bikes, and there's tons of roads like all through there. So yeah, I just decided to do some new riding out through there. I saw a bunch of really cool new stuff. I saw a couple roads that probably won't be there in a few years because
Oh.
they kind of had that feel of like,
Like they were, like the nature was taken back over.
yeah, and it was kind of like why, and one of them was a one pig road.
One
I
pig.
saw my first piglet of the summer, I guess.
Wow.
And he did the same thing. It was a little bit muddy, and I spooked him, and he ate it super hard. It was
Trying
coming
to
down
run
this
away from
descent,
you.
and he tried to, like, he, like, panicked, and he started running, and just, like, slammed so hard.
Oh man.
Yeah, this
Poor
poor little
piglet.
guy.
So now you've seen 2 pigs since we've been here, and I've seen 0.
Oh, I've seen so many pigs.
Really?
Yeah, so many.
I love pigs. Back in America, we had
I've
pigs.
seen a ton of pigs.
Really?
Yeah, you saw the piglet that slammed in front of me on the one descent going to
Oh
Chicago.
yeah, I did.
You saw that piglet?
I couldn't remember if I saw that or if I like got it on video and was watching the video recording later, like where you had it. Anyway.
I've only seen one big pig. I saw like one mama pig, and it was a very big.
Are you not like scared that there'll be like wild boars?
Well, that was the big mom pig I saw was a boar.
It's a little intimidating.
Yeah, she was actually a little spooky the one time I saw her.
Mm.
And I met a guy just out riding. He was a German guy named Peter. And
Shout out Peter.
yeah, I know. Way to go, Peter. It was just, we were in the middle of nowhere. And it
Mhm.
was just a German guy. He rides with a big bell because he said his in-laws are Japanese. That's why he's here. He was visiting them. And they've been telling him apparently like bear attacks are on the increase, and
Oh my
people are getting
gosh.
like pulled off their bikes and dragged into ditches. And
I hope not.
I don't think any of that's true, but I think that they're probably like elderly, and they probably read the one story that comes out like every year about
Well,
an elderly person getting mauled.
scary
So they sound like they're
stories.
very afraid of bears, and so they convinced him to put a bell on his bike because he was
Yeah.
asking me if I had a bell on my bike because he was like, "You ride out here?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Yeah, a bell on your bike?" And I was like, "No." And he was like, "You worry
Yeah.
about bears?" And I was like, "Not really."
I mean, the times
but-
that we've been somewhere that I am worried about bears, I'll start talking or singing or whistling. Sometimes if I'm alone, I will like whistle every once in a while because just
on the
in
road
case.
that had the pig, I did think about turning on music on my phone
yeah.
because it was like enough, like pretty out there
Mhm.
that I was, and then I saw that pig and I was
Yeah.
like,
But most of the time when we're riding, I don't think a bear would be going fast enough or like pop out fast enough to like.
if I was on an
knock me
uphill,
off.
it could catch me.
An uphill like very rural though.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I feel like we ride like
Also,
in
there's
and
so
out
many
of
cars that
parks.
drive around that I feel like bears are not hanging out near the road. But it is interesting because back home, I have so many friends that still live, of course, in West North Carolina, always posting photos and videos of bears. that
Well,
they
I
see.
didn't.
They
We
see 'em
talked
all
about
the
this
time.
before, but like the black bear in America is way less aggressive
Yeah.
than apparently the
The
Asian
black bear
black
here
bear.
instinctually hates people, and apparently
Sounds like-
goes out of its way to kill them.
Sounds like a
But-
small grizzly.
Yeah. But
But-
anyway, so I was on some pretty cool like rural roads.
Yeah.
But probably one of the coolest parts was for the first time, I climbed. What was it called?
Sekidousan?
No, it's Isurugiyama.
Wow.
Isurugiyama.
Sorry about the
Isurugiyama.
pronunciation.
Yeah. And Isurugiyama is a mountain that actually, so you went to Wakura, and
Yeah.
from the top of Isurugiyama, I could see down to Wakura, and then I could see down to Toyama Bay.
Oh.
So it was like one of the big mountains there. Yeah, so I went and did that, but if you look at it
Is
on
it
Google
on
Maps,
on the border between Ishikawa and Toyama?
yeah.
Like
My whole ride,
prefectures?
I was like kind of going back and forth between the
Hmm.
two prefectures.
That same mountain spine, if you had taken it like back towards Kanazawa, that's the Mount Io climb that I did. So that whole mountain spine is really pretty.
Mhm.
Or like range.
That's why I like riding on it.
But
And it's so long.
I haven't been to the
It
one.
goes from like essentially Wakura, like all the way to like Hakusan and down,
Interesting.
I guess. They get, of course, bigger. But yeah, I went up there, and on Google Maps, it's called Sekidousan. Sekidousan.
I'm not
but-
sure where the emphasis is supposed to be.
Yeah, probably Sekidousan. Like Sekidousan.
But it's a temple?
Apparently it used to be.
Not
They have
anymore?
like cool pictures, like cool Edo period drawings that it was this massive temple complex, and it had over like 58 buildings.
Wow.
And it was this huge thing, and it was the head of some sect, and it's very well known for mountain worship. So
Mm.
people would go up there and they would hike into the mountain. But now there's only one building left.
Oh, did they burn down?
I have no idea. I don't know if
Interesting.
like the monks moved out and they like fell into disrepair, but this
So
was
when
in
you
the
got
Edo
up
period.
there, like how did you know all this? Was there
I didn't know any of this until
okay.
I like Googled it. Because
Oh.
later I was like, that was a pretty cool climb. Like, what was that mountain called?
Mm.
And then I Googled it.
Did you see the one building that was left?
Mm.
Interesting.
So the one building left is kind of like a grass thatched roof building, kind of like what you see in Shirakawa. But yeah, it's the only one left, and that's the building you can rent for a whole
Oh.
day
You were telling
for
me about this,
4,000 yen.
but I didn't realize that one I just thought that was some random farmhouse you
No,
could rent.
that's like the one building that's left from this like massive temple complex.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah, for like less than $10 a day, we could have our own.
so it's 1,000 yen in the morning from like 9 a.m. to noon,
Hmm.
or you can do it for 4,000 yen. I think it's a day, but
Wow.
you have to bring your own futon, although they do provide firewood.
Oh.
It's just a really interesting place, and there's a temple up there that apparently is like beautiful, that they've revitalized and they rebuilt it, and it's this like huge temple. And
That'd
they're
be
like,
so interesting to go spend the night up there.
yeah, I want to go up there, and there were tons of hiking trails, and there were a lot
Yeah.
of things that were like really pretty. It looked like someone, for some reason, is putting a ton of money into it, I
Hmm.
guess, to try and bring visitors and revitalize the area. And there were some pretty views on the way up. It was really interesting. It was like a
Hmm.
really interesting place.
Well, we'll let you guys know if we end up. Maybe we'll reserve a night.
Yeah,
go
and
stay.
if we don't reserve a night there, there's a campsite up there too, and a bike is only 1,300 yen. So when
well,
we
we
get
don't
our
have
tent,
a tent yet.
yeah, when we
but
go back to the U.S., we'll probably bring it back
it'd
with
be a
us.
fun like fall trip.
Yeah, we could ride up there and stay. But yeah, it was just really interesting, and it's known for wildflowers. And apparently, Isurigiyama, the mountain, there's a lily that apparently only grows there. And so it's known as the Isurigiyama lily. And until July 26th, they had an exhibit where you could go up there and you could like look at these
You mean June
special.
26th?
Yeah, June 26th, I think.
Okay. I was gonna say maybe we
it's
could
still
still go
happening.
see it.
Maybe I'll have to double check the dates. But you can go up there and you can see this like famous lily that apparently only grows on this mountain.
Wow.
The locals are very proud.
Yeah, I would
um,
be too.
And then there's
Special?
also a shrine that has some kind of water that's a spring,
Is it like
and
a
it'll
hot
heal
spring?
everything.
Okay.
No, I think it's just like a normal like spring.
Oh, okay.
Because
Like
someone
a-
said that, like
Just
they
cool
in
mountain
the
water.
reviews, like Google, someone was like, I saw a family and they all had buckets of water and they were really filling up.
Yeah.
And
I'm gonna take a bath in that magic water.
yeah, it's some kind of magic water, and apparently it said it would heal like every ailment
Well, I need all the help I can
you
get.
could possibly have.
Well, good.
So yeah, it was just really fun,
That'd
and
be
it was
cool.
like neat to see something so like unexpected. Like I didn't know it was up there.
Yeah.
And I got to ride through it, and it was very pretty. And also just on like in the middle of nowhere, you would see like other grass thatched roofs, like on other like old houses. So it's just really like
that's the
an
best part
impressive
about
little area.
biking. I mean, there's so many places in Japan that we still have to go see, but just everywhere, just traveling by bike is.
You
so
see a lot
cool.
of unexpected stuff.
Yeah.
Especially because it's really funny because there are other areas where you'll see like this thing on Google Maps and it'll have like hundreds of reviews and talk about like this is a must-see spot. You have to go here. And it's like I rode by something that looks exactly like that. Like in the middle of nowhere.
You're able to go
no one's there.
far enough that you can really explore, but you're going slow enough that you notice stuff that you wouldn't in a car.
Yeah, and you're purposefully going on roads that people wouldn't drive on because you don't want to be near traffic.
Right.
So you're trying to not trying to find obscure places.
Stuff.
Yeah, like you'll just like every now and then we'll just ride by like huge temples and stuff out in the middle of nowhere, like this place. And I was like, surely on Google, I was like, oh, like I bet people love this. I clicked on it and there were like 16 Google reviews. And some people they were like, you're at the top of the mountain, but there's no view, not worth it. And I was like, oh, well. Kind of get it, I guess.
But yeah, anywhere, like not just Japan, like even back in the US, or when we went to Europe, there's just so much that we could see by bike.
Yeah.
Big fan of bike tourism.
Me too. So you did something that you went and visited an old friend.
My ride. I did a ride too. So sometimes Zeb and I we like to ride together, but we also like biking for separate reasons, or I don't know, I feel like cycling sometimes is like a meditation kind of thing, and I just will go out and get some alone time and take pictures, and I'll ride hard if I want to, but anyway, we like to do our own rides a lot too. So I went and saw my old friend, my favorite egg, Wakutama-kun, who is the Wakura onsen mascot, I guess.
Yeah, I would call him the Wakura onsen mascot.
The character for that
He's an
town.
onsen egg.
He's an egg. And so the reason he's an egg is because boiling eggs in onsen water is popular because the water is, it's not boiling, but it's hot enough that if you leave an egg long enough, it will be a little salty from the minerals, especially because Wakura onsen, it happens to be, so on Noto Peninsula, kind of at the base of the peninsula, there on the base and on the right side of the Noto Peninsula,
like right below Notojima.
I was going to say there's a little island right there, and Wakura looks at Notojima, the little island. But since it's right there on the coast, they boast that their water is really high in salt content as like their mineral.
Salty.
Which I guess that makes sense because when we went into Kiso, that's in the middle of Japan.
Yeah.
And so they don't have
smoother
the salt water.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, when you boil eggs in the Wakura onsen water, apparently they taste really good, and they'll absorb all the magical properties.
Annie's not a big fan of onsen eggs.
I want my onsen egg to be well done.
Yeah. One time I slurped one around her and she got really offended
because it was nasty sounding.
It was wet. It's basically like a slightly congealed egg.
Yeah.
Like when you crack it open, it's gonna run everywhere, kind of deal. Like it's.
Honestly, though, that was an egg that we bought at a convenience store. So
it's pretty good.
In the convenience store refrigerated section, next to like the onigiri and yogurt and stuff, you can buy eggs, and you can buy them raw to cook, or hard-boiled, or scrambled like style, or you can buy, like, it literally says on the packaging onsen egg, and it's a very soft boiled egg.
Yeah, super soft.
And I was like, I like soft boiled eggs. Let's get this. And it was so soft. Like,
it's kind of like taking an egg shot. Like you kind of like crack it open and then you have to like really like throw it back.
Yeah, and the way you like slurped it was just so unappetizing.
Yeah.
But
Annie wasn't a gamer growing up, so she's not going to know about this. But if you were a cool kid back in the day, into some gaming, and you were into a little old game called Harvest Moon, and if you had the best one, which is Back to Nature for PlayStation 1, in the like little, it's basically Harvest Moon Back to Nature is what Stardew Valley was based on, essentially, and Annie likes Stardew Valley. Yeah. But in Harvest Moon Back to Nature, there was a like onsen, like essentially an open air bath, and you could take eggs there and boil them. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't
like your
know
little
that.
character, you could throw the eggs in, and they would like pop back boiled.
Wow. I didn't know that was a thing until we went to that Wakura area when we first moved to Japan, because I didn't realize that the water was so hot. So
Well, you knew it when I slurped that onsen egg on our honeymoon.
but when when you're at this onsen town, there's a fountain there that has the water coming out fresh from the source, and it does have kind of like warning, don't touch the water, like it's so hot
Yeah, it's
there.
hot.
They cool it down before they bring it to the foot baths that are around the town, and the
that's
actual
why
water.
the one onsen we went to in Hokkaido, in
Mhm.
Josenkei, that's why it was like so proud of the fact that it was unadulterated water, because it
it's like
comes
the
to the
perfect
surface
temperature.
at the right temperature.
It's pretty special.
Yeah,
But
blessed.
anyway, at this fountain, there were actually people had put some eggs in there, and they were boiling them. But it's not like in your home kitchen where you boil an egg for like 6 minutes to reach the perfect, like,
Well, I feel like it's soft.
boiled,
Yeah.
whatever. This one says that in the summertime, it'll reach like edible consistency at about 15 minutes because it's not boiling water. And then in the winter, it said it can take up to 25 minutes, just like
Dang.
holding the eggs in the water. So
Well, next time
I
we
don't
ride
know.
up there, I'm gonna take some eggs. And we're
No,
gonna
you don't even have to
pop 'em
take
in.
eggs. That's the best part. Directly across from the fountain is a gift shop, like a little tourist shop. You would be proud. I was so close to going in and buying so many little Wakutama-kun
Oh, you should've.
figurines and stuffed
I'm a fan. I
animals.
like them.
Well, we'll have to go back. I also only had 1,000 yen
Come back with a bunch of
cash.
stuffed eggs. What's going on?
We'll put a picture of him on our Instagram, maybe, because he is an egg that carries around little egg friends.
And sometimes he dresses as an egg.
Yeah, he'll like wear an eggshell, but it's like
He's a little off, but
I
he's
think
a
he's
good
so
guy.
cute.
Yeah.
But you can buy eggs in that gift shop.
Yeah, but I want to boil my own.
You can buy raw eggs there,
okay.
and then you take them across the street to the fountain. Pretty cool.
Let's do it.
So I went up there to see this egg because they have a park and if you've listened to this podcast for a while, we probably mentioned this on the episode when we did the trip around the Noto Peninsula, because we stopped here for the first time.
The second month we were in Japan, we did a bike tour around the Noto Peninsula, and we spent the night on Notojima. So we stopped in Wakura Onsen,
which is very close to Notojima.
Yeah,
but this park
Wakutama-kun.
has all these statues of him, and I'll definitely put pictures of me and him. But he's just
I have
like
that funny picture of you guys holding hands.
Yeah.
You're holding on to his little nub.
He has little nub hands. Eggs aren't supposed to have hands, so he's lucky he has any. But they have like a statue of him riding a motorcycle, and a statue of him on a bench, and a statue of him holding some other eggs, and yeah, it's just such a goofy little guy. So I went up to go see him, but it was not my longest hour time solo ride, but it was my longest mileage solo ride. So it was 88 miles, and I did it.
I'm so proud.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, do you have a word of the week?
Yes, so I was talking about hydrangeas earlier, and Ajisai is hydrangea in Japanese, and if you literally translate the kanji, it would be purple sunflower. But yeah, Ajisai is how you say hydrangea.
That's pretty interesting, because I don't really think of a hydrangea looking like a sunflower.
I think it's like purple and then sun and flower, not sunflower in the English.
Oh, I didn't know if it was like the same kanji for like a sunflower, and then they just tacked on purple to it.
No.
Like if you take off purple, is that like
It's
what we think of as a sunflower?
I don't think so. I think English sunflower is a sunflower.
Oh, you think they use katakana like sunflower?
I don't know what sunflower is in Japanese. I'll look it up.
I just didn't know if it was like the same kanji set, and that, I mean, I guess I could kind of see like.
No, so sunflower is himawari.
Oh,
I feel like
okay,
I've
yeah, like the
heard that
sunflower
before.
village that's in. We're waiting for them to appear.
What?
In Kahugata in the lagoon, there's the Himawari Mura.
Oh, yeah,
There's like a
sign.
field in the lagoon that apparently is just all sunflowers.
Yeah.
So at some point in the summer, we can go look at them.
True. Yeah, but it's not the same as in English, like
Okay.
a sunflower. This is literally the kanji for like purple, sun, and flower.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah. What's your word?
My word is mugicha.
Delicious.
Yeah, I was worried you were going to say it earlier when you were talking about your soba flavored ice cream, because mugicha is barley tea. which I don't think I ever saw it in the United States.
I mean, we had it. It just wasn't as popular.
Yeah, it's just barley tea. It's a popular Asian drink. So pretty much all of...
Back in America, we were too busy drinking sweet tea.
It's true. Or just standard, tea.
Yeah,
like
Bojangles.
Black tea. Because they do a lot of green tea here, but they don't do a lot of black tea. But yeah, so mugicha is barley tea, and it's served hot or cold, but in Japan, it's most popularly served cold as a refreshing summertime beverage, which I thought was interesting. I was reading all about this. Apparently, originally it was a, aristocracy drink, only, the nobility drank it, and then it became popular samurai, and then eventually kind of, filtered down to the commoners, that you could find it being sold on the street.
Doesn't seem like it would be that expensive.
Yeah, I don't know.
I guess because it's made from barley, maybe it was better to eat the barley than to just drink, steep it.
Maybe it was a rich person thing, you drink your barley.
You have so much barley, you can soak it.
Yeah, because apparently it's made by boiling roasted unhulled barley kernels. But now in Japan, it's really popular that you can buy, a tea bag that's, crushed barley hulls and then make your own. But it's also, we buy it as a bottled drink that you get in the store.
Same way you'd buy a 2-liter Coke or something. They'll sell huge bottles of tea.
It's really good, and it is very refreshing. I really like it because it's
no sugar or caffeine.
Yeah,
you can just drink
that's why
it
I like it, because there's no caffeine. So it's a nice, relaxing kind of wind down drink. So I was curious, is there anything in it? It has a lot of antioxidants.
Okay.
So it's good for you.
It's good for me.
But then it has this weird thing. I'd never heard of an anti-nutrient. It has an anti-nutrient in it that is acrylamide. And apparently this wasn't discovered until 2002. And it caused a health scare because a lot of people thought it was cancerous. And it's essentially the burn bits. When you're baking potatoes or you're broiling potatoes, and there's a little charred bit.
Burned stuff is technically kind of cancerous.
Well, apparently that has acrylamide in it, but a lot of studies have shown that the acrylamide that comes from foods isn't cancerous.
Or maybe it's just such a light dosage.
It could be, but I think the scare came from there's apparently a lot of acrylamide in cigarettes. And so when you maybe that was the cancerous tie because there's a lot of it in cigarettes. So a lot of studies said that, you shouldn't have to worry about acrylamide in your foods or in your mugicha. So yeah, that's my word, is mugicha. And it's just barley tea. It's really good.
I'm going to drink some right now.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for listening to this week's episode. And
I think we're there at the end.
And sorry we didn't have any updates on a bike event, but hopefully in the future we'll be going to some more bike events if you're listening and you're into that.
Or we'll just plan our own, because the school is closed for about 2 weeks in August, so I want to do something.
Yeah, so in about a month we'll have possibly another bike adventure coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll keep you guys updated.
So yeah, thanks for listening.
Thanks. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.